Welcome to Roll for Geekiness, and may the 4th be with you. I'm Jonathan, and this is another episode of the Deck Brewers Cauldron, the series where members of our team talk about their favorite Magic the Gathering decks and the cards and combos that make them tick. While there is not yet a Star Wars Magic the Gathering crossover, there are a number of common themes between the two, and one of those is bounty hunters. So today, I'm going to talk about my Chevill, Bane of Monsters commander deck. Let's take a closer look. Chevill, Bane of Monsters costs a black and a green for a 1/3 human rogue with Death Touch. Chevill also has 2 triggered abilities. The first says, at the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponents control no permanents with bounty counters on them, put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. The second says, whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So if there are no bounties, Chevill will issue one at the beginning of my upkeep. And whenever anything with a bounty on it dies, I get a payoff. But Chevill is not the only thing that makes bounty counters. Bounty Hunter, Termination Facilitator, and Bounty Board all put bounty counters on things as well. To complete this list, I should also mention Mothis, Fiendseeker, but that doesn't fit into the color identity of this deck, so I have to leave it out. With these other pieces in place, I can now issue multiple bounties in the same turn. But if I want Chevill's ability to trigger again on my next turn, I need to collect all of those bounties before my next upkeep. And that is why this deck is packed with removal. While most of this is some of the most efficient targeted instants and sorceries, some of it is much more repeatable. Things like Royal Assassin, Avatar of Woe, the aforementioned Bounty Hunter, and even a couple versions of Vraska. And when you consider that the majority of the creatures in this deck have Death Touch, even pieces like Viridian Longbow, Sorcerer's Wand, and Pathway Arrows can be just as good. For those pesky targets that think they're safe because they have Hexproof or Indestructible, nah, my crew can still find them with Arcane Lighthouse, Detection Tower, Glaring Spotlight, and Shadow Spear. At the end of the day, if the bounties are piling up faster than I can collect them, well, that's where 6 board wipes come in. Now, all of that is well and good for keeping my opponents in check and earning some value in the process, but it doesn't close out the game. Those Vraskas that I mentioned earlier, they each have their own unique way of taking people out, and I can facilitate that with Rogue's Passage and Access Tunnel. But sometimes that's just not enough. That's when I turn to poison counters, and creatures with Infect and Toxic that make those counters. Grafted Exoskeleton and Prosthetic Injector can put those keywords on any of my creatures. And remember the Viridian Longbow, Sorcerer's Wand, and Pathway Arrows? Those allow my Infect creatures, though unfortunately not the toxic ones, the ability to reach out and touch someone. You might also remember that I mentioned having a lot of creatures with Death Touch, so Finn, the Fangbearer, can instantly make my entire board very scary. That's my crew and how they get things done. Full deck list on Archdeck, link below. But do you think I missed anything? Let me know in the comments or just share a story about your favorite bounty.